Is there intelligent alien life? And if so, has the government been covering it up?
What's going on, gentlemen? How are you doing tonight?
Not bad.
What's
Good.
up,
How about
man?
Doing well. So tonight, kind of want to go over. This came out. This started surfacing a few weeks ago. Karahan Tepe, a site similar to Göbekli Tepe in the same area of Turkey. There have been some new findings that they've come out with, and I don't know. I find this stuff like this is one of my favorite topics. These ancient civilizations. It's pushing back the history of mankind as we know it. People are thinking that it's Egypt, or the common knowledge is that Egypt is the oldest, civilization, but that was dated back only, I think, as far as 6,000 years, maybe a little bit longer than that, and it's been pushed back further and further before. Now, when they've dug up Göbekli Tepe and they start finding that actually it's closer to the 10,000 area, well, then we find Karahan Tepe, which I'm about to share right now. And I think as this develops and as they dig up these different sites and more of them, we're going to start to realize that, civilizations have been around a lot longer. And I don't think this is even a conspiracy theory at this point anymore. So before I share it, please tell me what you guys think about this.
I think you're right on the money about the civilizations. We're going to end up finding that they're a lot older than they supposedly are at this point. And I remember Graham Hancock saying that this site was like 1% to 5% like excavated. That was it. That's all they had dug up. That they know there's so much more because of radar, but they're like 5% excavated, and that's it. So I mean, there's so much more down there.
Yeah, and we can get after we kind of go over this, we can kind of talk about the excavation situation, because I think that's something sketchy going on there. But quickly before I move on, Stezo, you got any kind of preemptive thoughts before we really dive into the subject?
No, Chris kind of covered everything. The Graham Hancock stuff, and like I said, this is a newer site, and it's something that they're actually currently excavating. So more new stuff keeps popping up. So yeah, that's basically all I have. He kind of covered everything.
So this post that we have shared right now comes from Archaeo Histories. I'm not familiar really with the Twitter account. I'm gonna start following them. Actually, I'll do that right now. If whoever watches this, if you guys know of them or are want to debunk it in a sense, feel free to leave a comment below. But basically, what they have to say is that archaeologists at Karahan Tepe have made a significant discovery, unearthing a 7.5 foot tall statue of a seated man depicted holding his genital organ. This site, which is considered a counterpart to Göbekli Tepe, as we were saying prior, in I'm not going to try to pronounce that.
Lemuria.
Yeah, Lemuria.
Lemuria, Turkey. It's definitely Turkey. It's definitely Turkey.
Yeah, is estimated to date back around 9,400 BC. Now, again, that's about 3,500 years past what the accepted start of civilization is, and the whole argument around these two sites is that they weren't hunter-gatherers at that point, and that they were actually much more civilized than what we are being taught. So to carry on, this remarkable finding provides valuable insights into early human culture and artistic practices, highlighting the complexities and expressions of human society during that period. And they seemingly, this account is not trying to take a stance for the argument that Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, I think even Robert Schock has even mentioned something about the earlier. I think he tends to backtrack, but there are multiple people. The guy Benjamin, the Kiwi, I forgot his. Well, do you guys?
The guy from Uncharted X.
Yes, Uncharted
Yeah.
X, great channel. Go give him a follow and a subscribe if you haven't yet. So they all of these guys have been kind of trying to unearth this. Now, I find it very hard to believe a 7-foot statue could be carved out like this. And for what reason would they carve it out if they're just hunter and gatherers and, constantly moving from a different area to another, So
Yeah.
that's kind of the main point I kind of want to make about this. And I guess before I kind of switch topics, what do you guys do you guys want to like chime in on this at all? Because I think, and I'll even say I don't know the stone, but everything else around there has been bedrock and limestone, and or granite. So, and this is kind of looking like it's carved, especially at the base, like it's carved out of something, not
Yeah.
like a stone that's placed there and then they carve it down.
Right.
So, yeah, what are you thinking just about the area, Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, Turkey, that type of stuff?
It's definitely super intricate in terms of like what hunter gatherers, wouldn't be able to do. But just because this civilization here wasn't hunter gatherers doesn't mean that there weren't hunter gatherers still present and around in other
For sure.
places.
For sure.
So I think that's where a lot of people get caught up at. But yeah, man, it's definitely interesting. I just hope they get to keep excavating and digging and finding more. To be honest with you.
Yeah. Stizo, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, basically, well, I'm with you on this. I don't think this was stone that was brought in like some of the other stuff you'll see. Stones will be like carved out and stuff, and it looks like they were probably moved. That looks like that was probably basically just carved out of whatever surrounding dirt or stone was there. I could be wrong, but it looks like it morphs right into the stone that it's into, almost like it's carved out
Yeah,
of
everything
that.
was dug out. Yeah, that's what they
Right,
say.
and
Everything was
it's
dug
like
out.
right, and it looks like it's a, like some people call them statues, other people will call them like totems or whatever. It looks to me, it looks more like a totem.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Wait, the thing he's holding or the statue itself?
well, that too. They call that they would right. They actually call that like these are actually called like I think the name is I've seen before they're called phallic totems or whatever. Because and we'll get into it a little bit later because a lot of cultures around the world have like basically had
Right.
exact copies of this. So they're called phallic totems. So it's because he's holding his phallus, trying to be scientific here. He's holding his dong. But anyways, it's like, but anyways, that's what it is. And it's you see it in a lot of cultures over time. It's not just like a period, it's basically throughout history. But this is just another example. And for just basically hunter gatherers to do something like this is kind of shocking because hunter gatherers are constantly on the move. They're not setting up shop. You know what I mean? So
and it's one thing to like carve out, statues out of like wood or something, and carry it with you, for your religious purposes or whatnot.
right.
But this is essentially carved out of bedrock, either
Right.
bedrock or like a really hard stone, and it's 7 feet tall, so it's meant to be standing. And why would you build something like that and walk away from it?
Yeah, it
Is
just
the
doesn't make
question that I
sense.
have.
Doesn't make
And then
sense.
another part that I kind of wanted to bring up about kind of what Chris was talking about, the excavation is kind of it's a first of all, they're not allowing any further excavation in Göbekli Tepe as it stands.
Right.
And they want to plant like olive trees around it. And Jimmy Corsetti has talked about this. It's just very odd, like why you would not like this could really give us a lot of information about our humanity and the history behind us as a species. And for them to just kind of like, and I forget the excuse that they've brought up, but I don't see any reason why you wouldn't excavate further, and apparently only about less than 5% or up to 5% has actually been excavated. So we're just quite literally scratching the surface of these sites, and I'm baffled at this point as to why they would just cease. It's something to me. Of course, we're a conspiracy channel, so I'm going to immediately point my finger or start scratching my head and be like, okay, well, why are you doing that, and what's the reason behind it? I'm not just going to accept things at face value, you know. So let me drop this, and then
It doesn't make any sense, man. You couldn't get. It just doesn't make sense. Why they wouldn't want, when it's such a groundbreaking discovery, why they wouldn't want to excavate and learn more. I mean,
exactly.
I have a feeling why, but I mean, it's
Well, why don't you expand on that for a second here?
it's the same thing they do when anything, groundbreaking is discovered. They tuck it away because it might flip the mainstream narrative on upside down and uproot, all the
And
money and jobs and everything else like that. And they're not ready to move away from that. Too much money riding on it,
and that brings up a good point, Chris, because if I wholeheartedly trusted them, I would say it's better to not jump the gun and if they truly wanted to uncover the information, I would say take your time to do it and then come forward. But a lot of the time, these institutions are just flat out shutting the information down, and evidence. A
Well,
lot of
there's a
evidence in
difference.
Egypt,
There's a difference between excavating the right way and taking your time and doing it slowly, and completely stopping and not
yeah, and ignoring.
restarting for another
Yeah,
100 years.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. I totally
Super
agree.
sketch. Yeah.
So Graham Hancock has brought this up, and it's kind of okay. Never mind. Graham Hancock has brought this up that he believes that these cultures could have been connected to a certain degree, where they're kind of worshiping the same gods, perhaps, or specifically the regions that we just talked about, Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe, are worshiping some sort of a fertility god. There are a lot of statues with what seemingly it looks like women are giving birth. Now this one is a man holding his genitalia, and like Steve was talking about, these phallic totems that that were mentioned. So I wanted to kind of bring up a couple different examples from different cultures. Now, the first one I'm going to bring up is from a place south of Malaysia, near the Christmas Islands, at a temple called the Suku Temple. And this image that I'm about to share right here is what I'm referring to. And again, it's the same symbolism. The head is missing, but you can clearly see it's the same symbol. And there's what other reason other than fertility would these ancient peoples take the time to carve something like this? And I think it's pretty clear that the symbolism is the same. Now I have one more, and this one is Mayan. And again, it is the same symbolism here, So, and there is debate across, different, I guess you could call them pseudo, I don't want to be disrespectful, but like pseudo archaeology, or, alternative archeology, as I like to say.
Fringe archaeology. Yeah.
Yeah, something from, just a different perspective, like I'd say a lot of them are doing a lot of good work when it comes to this stuff, but they've kind of all mentioned, that the possibility of other people making their way across the ocean a lot earlier than what was believed. And there's even I forgot who I was listening to. It might have just been like a short, but they're talking about how there's this kelp highway up in the north. And I think it was around the time of the Ice Age, but at that point you would have been able to walk across the ice.
Oh yeah.
From like northwestern Europe down through the Arctic into America. And I know that that's not that's like proven you would have been able to do it. So, I'm not going to go as to, because I'm a layman. I don't study archaeology. I'm just fascinated by it, and I like looking into it on a surface level. I haven't really done a deep dive, but I don't know. I think there's enough, at least based off of the little I know, that there's a chance, perhaps, that people that's that could have very well happened. There are different cultures in the Native Americans that have talked about how there are pale skinned people, that have been
Yeah.
here prior to what uh, history has told us. So I'll kind of just leave it in your guys' hands because I just kind of rambled a little bit about
No,
that, but I'd like to
I
know.
think you're right. I think you're right, man. There's we've seen, looking at other things, we've seen multiple different uh similarities in these cultures from all across the world, and I don't think it's too far to say that there was they were more of like a world there could have been more of like a worldwide civilization. uh it, it's just we sometimes you I think that we let our current understanding of history and what we think we know control uh what we might be able to discover, you know what I mean, if
For
that
sure.
makes any sense. And I think that's where we get to when it comes to a lot of these civilizations all over the world just being independent and not having any communication and you know just being disconnected. I think the more we discover, I think the less and less true that's going to be.
For
I
sure.
think you're on the right track is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely, man. Steve, you got any final thoughts?
Not really, man. You guys, I mean, we covered this pretty good. I mean, as good as you can do it. I think
Yeah.
it's like we always come back to this. It seems like a broken record at the end of the video. We're always talking about how we show time and time again as we do more and more research on these ancient civilizations, how there is like this pattern of something just you're connecting dots, and the more and more that we do, we keep seeing you know like patterns, and it's like it's showing that it's not matching what the narrative that we've been being taught by
Right.
science, mainstream science, and it needs to be investigated, it needs to be looked at even more, and the needle keeps getting pushed back, and so yeah, it's just interesting how it just more so now today, and I think with social media, um it's not just certain areas, it's like they're finding spots now all over the globe, like
Dude,
of these
China,
things, yeah, like
South
of the
America.
and more, and it's almost like a contest now. I'm laughing, it kind of reminds me of like uh back in the day there when they were discovering all these new dinosaurs, like every year, like they'd find a new 10, 12 new dinosaur species and stuff, and there was like this big thing. They're like, oh wow, and then all of a sudden they're up to like hundreds now. From when I was a kid growing up and stuff like that, there might have been like a dozen to 2 dozen different dinosaurs, right? And now there's hundreds of different species of dinosaurs
Mm,
over, because you're talking about covering millions and millions of years, right? But
mm.
um same thing with the civilization. They keep finding earliest points of man, and then they say, oh, we think we found it, and then they find another person, and then they find another one, and the more and more you go back, it's like, okay, well, we had all our ancestors were hunter gatherers. Well, now we're finding out these civilizations or ancient civilization is need to be. It looks like that needle's getting pushed back in time. So it just, how far back does it go? I feel like that it wouldn't surprise me that if it goes back in the not tens of thousands of years, maybe to like 100,000 years, 200,000
Dude,
years, maybe
yep.
a million years. You never know. So I'm just interested to see what people finding out on this stuff.
And
Yep.
like you had said, just to kind of finalize it, like we tend to reiterate ourselves, repeat ourselves, but at the same time, I think reinforcement is the whole idea that,
Well,
time and time again, we're
especially when the evidence brings us back to it. It's not like we're
yeah,
we're just going
yeah,
back to it, but when we discuss these different topics and the topic itself brings it back to that same thing, that at some
for,
point it's not too hard to believe that there was a civilization connected, a worldwide civilization.
for sure. Well, listen, gentlemen, it's always a pleasure. And if you guys, those watching, made it to the end of the video, I appreciate you guys. We all appreciate you guys for taking the time to listen to us just discuss our thoughts on these type of things. We will see you on the next video.
All right, later.
Later.